All right. Well, hello everyone. My name's Anise. I'm the Officer of Event Management, and today Idea Student Society is going to be hosting another presentation as part of our Navigating Grad School series, but this time we're going to talk about letters of recommendation. So today in this presentation, we're going to go over why you need letters of recommendation and why they're important. We're going to go over the timeline of when you should ask until like actual submissions. We're going to go over like what you should do, what you should give to your letter writers, and what you should not do. We're going to go over who you should ask to write your letters, how to ask them, as well as drafting your own letters of recommendation, which is a thing sometimes that you might have to do. So first, letters of recommendation are extremely important as part of the application process because they allow the admissions committee to get a different insight into who you are as a person, as well as your skills and your strengths. You, of course, are going to say, yes, I am a perfect candidate for this program. But for someone else to say, this person is a perfect candidate for your program, that means a lot more, especially people like in that field. So requirements for letters differ a lot. Make sure you're looking at what your program requires. But typically for graduate school, they want 3 to 4 letters. They want, yeah, 3 to 4. A lot of times the 4 is optional. And they want letters from either professors, advisors, or employers. Make sure whoever you're asking is able to provide information that will support you. Don't just ask someone, randomly because you think they give a letter. Make sure it's someone who can actually speak to you, your skills, and support you getting into that program. A person you should not ask is TAs. Never, not never. Look at your requirements, but more often than not, they do not want letters from TAs. They want letters from those who contain doctorates. So we're going to look at how to ask, like what's that timeline? So on average, as soon as you complete whatever experience, may it be like a research program, the course, the internship, whatever it might be, at the end of it, immediately ask whoever you might want to write you that letter. Ask them for a letter, mention it to them and say like, hey, I'm planning to apply to graduate school in 3 months, 6 months, 2 years from now. Would you be willing to write me a letter of recommendation? And you want to ask that so that it's like in their head and they keep in mind, or they might, take notes right then and there about some things that you might have done. So it's like fresh in their memory. Surprising people like 2 years later being like, you write me a letter, they might not remember you or what you did. And that makes it harder for them to write those letters. So next, 1 to 2 months before the application is open, you want to like nudge them and be like, hi, remember me from XYZ experience? Would you be willing to write me a strong letter of recommendation? You can provide small amount of information, such as the program title that you're going to be applying to, like I will be applying to PhD programs. Would you be writing in this time frame? Would you be willing to write me a letter of recommendation? But you don't like overload them at that point. The next step, when you would email them and contact them, is when your application's open. So very often, when in today's day and age, it's not all the time, but very often, letter writers submit their letters of recommendation online. It's not something where they write the letter, they give it to you, and you give it to the program. The program, you'll input their email into like some type of field. The program will send them a link. They will complete the letter, or sometimes it's even like a questionnaire that they have to complete, and you don't interact with it, touch it at all. As soon as your application's open, put in all of your letter writers so they get those links. And that way, like let's say the due date for applications, it's like 3 months from now. Now they have 3 months to complete that letter versus you telling them a month beforehand or 2 weeks beforehand. Now they have a month or 2 weeks. Letter writers are very busy people. They have other letters that they're writing. They have their own work. They have families. They have obligations outside to just us. And writing a letter is something that can take anywhere from like 30 minutes to a full hour. So like imagine 10 different students asking you for a letter, even just 10, but it's an hour it takes you to write those letters, that's 10 hours that you're spending. You want to be able to spread that out. So next, about 2 weeks before the application opens, just give them like gentle reminders if they haven't submitted by that point. Uh, Professors are fallible, they're people. Sometimes some of them wait till last minute. So just give them like gentle reminders. And then finally, and this is like so important, send them a thank you email. Um, you're going to send multiple thank you emails, but this initial thank you email is very important and you shouldn't not send this one. Thank them for writing you a letter, just like after application season is over, and be like, thank you so much for supporting me in my endeavors. So next, the do, give, and don't. So do give deadlines. Do ask early as you possibly can. Give them as much time as possible. Do follow up with them. These letters, not saying it's not a priority to them, but it's not like a high priority to them. It's a priority for you. So it's your job to make sure that they're on top of it. Do you give them enough time to write and submit those letters? And this is also very important. A lot of applications, there will be like a check mark or a place to sign your name asking, do you want to view this letter? Always say no, never say yes, even though it might be tempting to say yes. The reason that you don't want to tell them that you've looked at the letter is because that shows a lack of trust between you and the letter writer. Again, this is someone who's speaking on your character, and for you to be kind of like, it appears as though like you're over their shoulder, scared of what they might say about you. That doesn't indicate you having a good relationship with your letter recommender, and that can indicate that what they're saying about you isn't true. What you do give your letter recommender is all the documentation that they might need. So this again differs depending on who the letter writer is, but a lot of times at the minimum they want your CV and they want a draft personal statement that just lets them know basically your intentions for the program. It gives them an idea of your life story. It allows them to see things that they might highlight in their letters. Again, that depends. I have a letter writer who didn't want any of that stuff, but I have a very good relationship with him. So he's able to write the letter without seeing that. Do you give them institution information? They should be getting hyperlinks as well as due dates. Do you give them the program information? Again, hyperlinks as well as due dates. Don't coerce your letter writers. Don't like beg or bully them into giving you a letter of recommendation. That's not ever good, and you're not going to get a good letter of recommendation out of them. If you've sent an email asking for a letter and they haven't responded, it's okay to send a follow-up. Again, two of my letter writers who I have very good relationships with completely missed my first request email, so I had to send another one. And that's just like, they're busy people, they get a lot of emails, it's easy for stuff to fall through the wayside. But don't bully them, don't get mad at them, don't ask them like, well, why won't you write me a letter, like what's the problem? Don't do that at all. Never ever use a reference without permission. Before you input their email addresses in any slide or say to the program, like, this is who's going to be writing my letters of recommendation, make sure you get permission from them to do that first. Don't just input them and then ask them later. Like, never do that, because they might say no, or they might really want to write you a letter, but they're just too busy to write you a letter. Like, they might have family emergency going on. They might have a whole bunch of other people that ask them for letters and they don't have time to write you a strong one. So don't assume that they're just going to write you a letter. Don't give them false information. Don't give the program false information. Don't say, I won all of these magnificent awards, but you haven't done it. They're going to fact check you on that. And don't put in like false names to be your letter writer. That's just obviously not okay. And also, don't hesitate to ask for more letters of recommendation. A really, I would say, like, beautiful thing about building relationships with professors and getting those types of letters is a lot of times you use them over and over again because, like, it's a relationship. So one of my letter writers has written my letters like since I've started applying for stuff. And a lot of times one letter can let you get into an experience that then gets you another letter, which can get you another letter, which can get you another letter. And then you end up having like multiple different people to choose from, which is always nice because if you're applying to like a bulk of programs, it's good to be able to disperse that work out. But yeah, definitely never not ask for a letter, and don't be like, oh, well, I've already asked them for so many. Like, no, it's okay to ask them for another one. At worst, they're just going to say no to you. So, who should you be asking for letters of recommendation? Um, for graduate school, and this is mostly going to be centered around like research graduate school, but of course, this advice can apply across all. The first people you should be asking, especially if you're applying to research-based programs, is people you have done research with. So, for example, if you have 3 different research experiences, all 3 of those research mentors slash PI should be writing your letter. If you were to not do that and only did like 2 research mentors and then like a STEM faculty who maybe you have like a great relationship with and know very well, the program's going to look at that as like, oh, well, you must have not been a good student or you must have not been a good researcher because you didn't get a letter from them. If let's say you had like a bad experience for one of your research experiences and that's why you don't want them to write you a letter, that's completely fine. That's just something you would explain in your personal statement. But just know like that is something you need to defend if you choose not to have a research mentor write you a letter. Now, let's say you don't have 3 different research experiences. That's completely fine. A lot of people work with one PI for a lot of their like undergrad career, so it's not shocking. Next, you would ask STEM faculty and professors. Um, anyone, you would go in order of most pertinent to the program that you want to get into. So, for example, if I was going for a genetics program, I would ask my genetics professor first. I wouldn't ask like an evolution or a biochem professor. But and then next after that, I might ask like a functional genomics teacher. Then after that, I would ask, biochem or chemistry or da 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 da. Right? It's whoever's most pertinent. And then after any STEM faculty, and this can be like kind of interchangeable with STEM faculty, you would ask professionals in the field as well as like employers if you are in a STEM field and working in STEM. So an example would be physician assistants or pathologist assistants. They need letters from a medical provider in order to get into graduate school. You would ask a doctor that you shadowed with before you would ask a STEM professor. Let's say that you work at like LabCorp. A lot of ASU students, online ASU students, work with LabCorp. It's completely fine to ask your boss to write you a letter. All of these requirements differ with each program. Just make sure like you're up to date on that. The only thing I would say is maybe like more universal for graduate programs is that your letter should be coming from someone who has a PhD or has like a master's degree. They typically don't want it from someone who like only has a bachelor's or anything, which is why, and this is very important, do not ask your graduate students or TAs to write you a letter of recommendation. They can't. Their name, not that their name's not going to mean anything, but their PI or their whoever the faculty, their name goes further because they're actually in the field. They're able to attest and say like, I would want you in my lab. Don't stress if you're someone where it's like, oh, well, I've never talked to my PI. I only talk to this graduate student who I work with. That's completely fine. Very often, the graduate student will write the letter and then the PI will sign their name on it. So don't worry about that. It's just like the graduate student's name's not going to be the one on the letter. So next is how to ask. So sometimes it could be like very scary first asking for that letter, which is why I would say like don't let this initial email be the first time they're hearing that they want a letter from you. It's always nicer when you can like ask them in person, and that alleviates a lot of stress knowing that like yes, I absolutely have someone writing a letter. This is basically like an update for them. But the most important thing for asking is you want to give them as much information as possible and communicate with them as much as possible. The first thing that you're going to do is give them the program information. Tell them how many programs that you are applying for. So let's say you're applying to one program. Most professors can write one letter for one program. But if you're applying for like 20 programs, that's a lot of letters for them to write, right? Again, like sometimes they might have 10 students. So if 10 students are asking for 20 letters, that's 200 letters for them to write, and each letter takes an hour. It's 200 hours for them, right? That's a lot of time. So they might have to say, I'm sorry, I can't write that many letters. And that lets them tell you, way ahead of time versus waiting until 2 weeks before the program. If it's something, typically the amount of programs that you want to apply for is 5 to 10, 10 being like the max. Most professors are willing to write that. It's just make sure you ask them early so you basically get there first and you're not the one they have to reject. Make sure you tell them the type of program that you're applying for, whether it be, I'm applying for post-bac programs. I highlight in when I ask them that, hey, I'm applying for post-bacs. I'm not applying for PhD. Because when they go to write the letter, they might accidentally say, oh, Anise is a great candidate for a PhD program. And then the admissions get it and they're like, this isn't a PhD program. And that shows that you weren't communicating with your letter. Oh, this letter writer must not know the student that well because they just got something pretty big messed up. So make sure to highlight, like if you're applying to a master's program, if you're applying to a PhD, if you're applying to a postdoc, if you're applying to an REU, highlight what type it is, highlight the field. I'm applying for biomedical PhD programs. I'm applying for a ecology master's program so that they know like what type of verbiage that they are meant to use and maybe like what type of skills they need to highlight within their letters. And also hyperlink the programs. We'll have examples where I'll show you like how you can just hyperlink and it's very simple. But you want to hyperlink so they can click on it, go through the requirements and like see what about the program and stuff. They want to know what you're applying to. Like they also care about you as an individual. Make sure to give them an accurate timeline. So in the first email, you're going to be giving them a range of the due dates. I will be applying to 10 PhD programs with a range of due dates from December 1st to December 20th, right? That's a very teeny tiny range. But let's say you're applying to REUs where the due dates are from February to May. That's a huge range, right? That might be more doable for someone to write 10, like to write 20 letters, but they have multiple months to write all 20 letters versus 20 letters, but they only have like 2 weeks to get them all in. That's very stressful for them, and that allows them to make a proper decision as well as know how to schedule their time to give you the best letter possible. When you send those emails, bold the first due date. Like I will be applying to REUs with a timeline. The first due date will be March 16th. You bold that March 16th for them so it pops out in the email. And then give them like until June, right? Ask for a preference in how they want to communicate with you. I feel like this is good. Don't just assume that they want frequent reminders because that can get annoying, but also don't assume that they don't want any type of reminder whatsoever because again, they're very busy. Just ask them how they want you to communicate with them. Like, do they want you to give them all of the due dates, all of the program names, and all of the links all at once, and then they track it on their own, and then you just like pop in 2 weeks beforehand the due date to make sure that they've like submitted? Or would they prefer that you give them each program information one at a time, maybe like a month before the due date application deadline? Like people are different, so you just want to make sure you're clear on that. Yeah. So here's an example of exactly what I have sent to my letter writers. I've obviously crossed out their names, but this first example, I'm not sure if you can see my cursor. Let me try. I don't know if you can see my cursor. Hopefully you can. But this first one is what I would send 1 to 2 months before the program, right? So again, I finished my summer research experience in August and I asked him, can he write me a letter to his face in his office? So here I'm saying like, hey, I hope you're feeling well. I'm writing because I am applying to NIH prep programs this fall and I'm wondering if you're willing to write me a strong letter of recommendation. Specifically say, are you willing to write me a strong letter of recommendation? Because that is what you need, not just a letter of recommendation. And then I give more information. The first program I'm applying to is University of Rochester, which is rolling admissions. The application opens this time and I wish to apply by this time. Please let me know if you're willing to write a letter and I can send any application material that you want. I'm also like offering to meet with him over Zoom if he wants to go over any of my application, etc. So next to it is the email I sent literally the day that the application's opened. And I update him with, "Hi, they've opened their applications. You should have received an email last night with a link requesting a letter from University of Rochester. Please let me know if you didn't." And then I give him the hyperlink. So it's blue like that. It also pops out, which is really nice. So I'm giving the name. I'm telling him why I'm applying to postbac programs because I want to gain more wet lab experience to be competitive. And then I also specify the research interest that I have. So that way, when he's writing his letter, he's not saying like, "Oh, Anise really wants to do biomedical programs in order to study, I don't know, Alzheimer's." No, I'm not interested in Alzheimer's. I'm interested in cancer microbiome specifically. That's what's going to be said in my personal statement. Your letter, what's said in the letters of recommendation and what's said in your personal statement should be matching up. It shouldn't be like discrepancies between the two. Um, And then also, you can be strategic with your letters and what you ask of them. It's perfectly fine. As you can see, like right here towards the end of the second paragraph, I specifically asked, like, can you mention that that was my first wet lab experience? Can you mention that I just did an oral presentation? I will be doing a poster presentation and that I have gone out of my way to seek opportunities to present my research, right? I say what I want them to highlight, but I'm saying it in like a respectful manner. Don't just tell them like mention this. That's rude, right? But it is okay for you to highlight what you want them to mention, and you should do that. Like it's your letter. You should be advocating for yourself, right? And then here, notice I bold the final due date. I want everything submitted by November 20th, so he's aware. And basically, like, if you were just firsthand looking at this letter, not actually reading it, because again, they're very busy, people skim emails. He would see Rochester, due date, letter of recommendation in the subject. Cool, Anise wants to apply to University of Rochester by the November 20th, and I need to get a letter of recommendation by then. He automatically knows that, just like skimming the email. This other one is a 1 to 2 month advance of programs that I sent for applying to REUs. The reason I include this example here is because for my postbac, I'm only gonna hopefully, prayerfully, apply to just one. But for REUs, I was applying to 10 and maybe 11, right? So in this, I specify that how many I'm going to be applying to. I specify the range and then I, communicate that I haven't heard back from another program that I want to apply to over whether they'll have a summer program. I include the first program that I'm going to be applying to as well as the due date, which was January 16th. And then I specified that I'm going to submit my application by the 16th. Can she get a letter by the 30th? As you can see, like it's January 10th. So I was making sure it was giving at least 2 weeks notice before that due date. And then again, in this last paragraph, I'm asking how she wants me to communicate with her. Like, would you prefer if I give you the list of all the programs and their due dates? Or would you rather I just email you the program details one at a time? She specifically wanted everything all at once. And each time I would send the letter writer request link, I would just send an email being like, "Hey, you should have received request links from Iowa, Penn, Michigan, and this other program." And that'd be 4 programs all at once, just making sure she got it. And overall, like, just communicate back and forth. Like, asking for letters isn't just going to be one email. I think in this specific thread for the REUs, 14 emails had been sent back and forth. So it's a constant conversation about what might be needed because, again, like, this is part of your future. So you should be taking control and like advocating for yourself and making it clear that like you really, really need this. Here's another just very like generic example that you guys can use for just copy and paste to send. So again, it's dear recommender's name. I hope you're feeling well. I'm in the process of applying to relevant school, and I'm asking if you would feel comfortable to write a strong letter of recommendation on my behalf. I've enjoyed my time as specify like the relationship um, and give like an example of the types of skills that you want to mention or things that you want them to mention. and then give the deadline, give an updated version of like your resume or CV if you have it, as well as the information about the program or the job posting. And then uh, tell them like if you need any additional information, don't hesitate to contact me. And that's it. It's very simple. It's not as scary as people think it is. A lot of times they'll say yes unless they don't know you that well and think they can't. Basically, the only time they're going to say no to you on average is if they feel they can't write you a strong letter of recommendation, in which case you don't want them to write you the letter because they can't write you a strong letter of recommendation. And a lot of professors will be honest about that because they're nice people. They don't want to screw you over. They're not going to write you a bad letter of recommendation. They don't have to. Great. And then this final thing. So sometimes, right, a letter writer might ask you to draft your own letter. It's relatively rare, but it does happen sometimes, especially, for example, like you need a letter from professors, but you're going to ask a STEM faculty that you don't know that well, but like you showed up to their office hours and you did really well in their class. They might ask you to write the letter and then just sign their name on it because they don't know you that well. So they figure you can write the best letter for yourself. They'll edit it a little bit and then sign off their name. It also gives them a kind of like starting point for writing their own letter. So again, like they're probably going to edit it and put their own personal touch into it, but it just helps them out, saves them time, especially if they're really busy or especially if like they might not be used to writing letters of recommendation if they're, for example, like teaching faculty or something. So first thing you want to do is start with summarizing yourself. Uh, Use it as a basis of understanding and like a summary of who you are to give to the letter writers. The first thing that you're going to do to start this process, review your CV. Your CV is like should be your whole entire like academic journey. Um, Remember, like CVs are more research based, but like you can include other stuff on there. Of course, it's like everything about you. Highlight any like achievements that you want to mention, any awards, any publications that you need to mention, et cetera, et cetera. Just make a list of those and then just start writing those in like Anise just presented at I don't know this conference and did an amazing job and she's very a go-getter and da 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 da. Don't use those exact verbiage, but like that's an example. And next, evaluate your experience. So reflect on the experience you had with a letter writer. So for example, if there's someone who taught a class that you liked, like let's say you're applying to an evolutionary PhD program and you want the evolution teacher to write you a letter of recommendation, but they told you to draft it yourself. You love evolution, obviously. That's why you're asking them to write it. So in it, you could say, um, they were an amazing student in my class. They fully participated, and this course was the one that sparked their interest in evolutionary medicine, right? Make that connection between you and the letter and say, like, they were a great student, very diligent. A good phrase or a good like indicator for programs, if it's a research-based program, is if the letter writer specifically says, like, my projects would not have progressed without this student, or if I could, I'd take this student into my lab. That means like you're an amazing researcher and you're amazing at what you do and you're amazing at your skill, right? So that's something you can like write in there for the draft for them. Here's an example draft so that you guys can like copy paste use. And it's dear organization, accept my warmest regards. Oops, don't do like organized by department, just put in school name. I forgot to do that out. Uh, as title of the letter writer, so as an associate professor of molecular biology at Arizona University, right? I have been given the privilege of mentoring many students. Include 3 to 5 skills in there. Compliment yourself, of course. Say that like projects wouldn't have been able to go forward without them, like you're integral to the research experience. Um, Insert that like they not only have you learned from them, but they learned from you, as well as I would be happy to have them in this lab or continue to work with them, give them well wishes to the program that you're applying to, and then give a head. I don't hesitate to contact me. And finally, don't forget to send those thank you letters to your letters of recommendation writers. After the final deadline of all the programs and all the letters have been in, you want to send one letter being like, thank you so much for writing me letters. It's so appreciative, right? After you finish your after you get your acceptance, send another letter. Thank you so much for writing me letters of recommendation. I was just accepted to 5 out of 10 programs that I applied to. List off the names. I appreciate your help, integral help into this process. Right? Letter writers are people. They want to see you succeed. That's why they do it. They want to share in your success. So update them when you are successful. I would say about at the 1 year mark of your program. So like halfway through or either at the very end, send another thank you letter like, dear blah, blah, blah. I have just completed my first year of this PhD program or this master's program, and it's been absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for your mentorship and like helping me get to this point. After I finished my REU, I sent a thank you letter and updated all my letter writers with thank you so much for doing this because this was an amazing REU. Thank you so much for helping me get in, which helps further build those relationships and also lets me like ask them for more letters in the future because like they know um I'm successful and it's maintaining that relationship. That's not why I did it. That's not why you should do it. You should do it legitimately as like a thank you and to keep a connection with another human being who has been a great mentor to you that you want to keep that relationship with because they're a great person. But don't forget to say thank you, like ever. It's just good manners. It shows good on you as a student. Don't forget to say thank you. And any questions right now and any comments, I can answer them. You can either raise your hand or you can put it in the chat. No questions. Okay. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for being here, of course. Thank you for if you're in the playback crew, like thank you for watching our YouTube video. If you're not a members of Ideas Student Society, scan this QR code in order to join. We've also dropped the link to Sun Devils Connect in the chat. But overall, like, thanks. I hope you guys come to our next navigating grad school event.